Thank you. Mr. Hodge, with regard to your corporate tax code, currently you said we're at number 1 or number 2 as far as corporate tax rates or tax burden?
Tax rate.
Tax rates, okay.
Tax rate. The top marginal rate of 35% added to the state rate puts us over 39%, which is the second highest in the.
So the pushback to that often is, well, we may be at the first or second in the top rate, but we're not necessarily at the top top burden because of all the corporate loopholes that are out there. So how do we compare vis-a-vis the other countries as far as our overall corporate burden when you consider the fact that you have $100 billion worth of corporate loopholes?
Well, the $100 billion actually doesn't lower the effective rate all that much. As I mentioned, over the last 18 years, it's been about the average effective rate for all U.S. corporations has been about 26%. And then when you add the taxes they pay abroad, which is about $100 billion a year, their global world effective tax rate is about 33%. So they are paying close to the U.S. Statutory rate.
Well, did you say if you did away with them all, you would go all the way down to?
You can only lower the rate maybe to about 28 or 29%, and that includes bonus depreciation, which we would not want to eliminate.
Okay, and so if we did that, then our standing in the world would be approximately?
We'd be 4th highest around in the OECD.
Okay, as far as rates are concerned, but burden level basically remains the same because it's one shift to the other.
Right. I mean, the U.S. is about 3% or 4% of GDP is in corporate tax collections is below the OECD average. That's true.
Okay.
And so we have a high rate and low collections, which makes a lot of sense. That's why we have this Neiman Marcus system. You know, Neiman Marcus is very small, Walmart is very big, and then they're doing it on volume, whereas Neiman Marcus is trying to do it on price, and you can see who won.
Okay. So, okay, thank you. Going to one of the Chairman's initially comments, he was commenting what the President said, we do need to do corporate tax code reform, which is a good thing. The President spoke of, I think you said, fairness, simpler and more competitive. Mm-hmm. Now, there was an article, I think, a week or two ago in National Review on this topic of competition and competitiveness, and there's too much focus on competitiveness, and I may not be saying exactly correctly, but the focus should not be to try to make our system more competitive, but rather our economy more competitive, rather more productive. Because you could have a more competitive system simply by switching the tax code around to say that Mr. Wall's business is more competitive vis-a-vis international trade by giving you additional corporate benefits or tax cuts, what have you. You're now more competitive versus your trading outside this country. But that's really not what we're trying to do here, right? We really need to not have competition, but increase the productivity for your company, right?
Well, I think that by lowering the rate, we will increase productivity. And so by making the U.S. more competitive, U.S. companies will become more productive and more competitive as well. Mm-hmm. So what's good for the economy will be good for them as well. Okay.
And Ms. Rogers, you were making the comment as far as what we need overall as far as our budget is concerned is some certainty, even if not to be made now with regard to cost savings because of the economic morass that we're in, but over the long period of time. And if you provide that certainty over the long period of time, that will provide what? More productivity and investment in the economy now?
Well, I think it's important to get our budget outlook in control for the short term just because it increases the confidence of global investors in the U.S. economy and keeps interest rates low.
But I thought you said something about that maybe not making those cuts right now, but rather as long as you have a plan in place that over a period of time, so that provides a certainty. Maybe I heard you wrong.
No, that's right. I mean, you might be surprised that the Concord Coalition, who are, the deficit hawk organization, isn't demanding that deficits be cut right now, but we're not. We're demanding fiscal responsibility right now, which might mean whatever deficit spending we're doing at the moment that we make sure it has high productivity, high bang per buck in terms of the stimulus, and over the longer term that we've got a plan in place to get to more economically sustainable deficits.
Well, so 2 quick questions. One is there any history to show that if we make any projections now for the future as far as not making the cuts today, but plan to do them in the future, that they actually get implemented?
No, we're not. We don't have a good track record on that, and that's why I'm hoping that the Budget Committee can commit to some serious budget discipline rules, such as strict pay-as-you-go.
And the second thing, as far as the short-term fixes that we do right now, both parties have done this. President Bush did this with a tax package where we got, sent out checks basically of $250 or something like that to family. The new administration is saying the same thing. Let's do some short-term tax fixes as far as payroll taxes, what have you. What's the history? Whether Republican or Democrats try to do this, do you see long-term results from this, or are they just really blips in the economy of that period?
Well, I don't think that the payroll tax cut is designed to be a long-term growth tax cut. It is designed to stimulate demand. So the reason why CBO lists payroll tax cuts as one of the more effective tax cuts to increase demand is because it tends to go to lower and middle income households who are most cash constrained. So if you're trying to get more spending on goods and services immediately, you're best giving the cash to people who are constrained and will spend it all when they get it.
Mr. Blumenauer.